Once you graduate from middle school, you need to work and contribute to the household. Although I wasn't allowed to continue my education, I worked while attending night high school. Just when I thought I could finally escape, my parents kept leeching off me. The man I was dating left after seeing how shallow my parents were. I always thought I could never be happy. I was always just lamenting my misfortune. But then a turning point came. If I couldn't be happy because of my toxic parents, I should do something about the parents. My name is Tessa Burton. I'm 31 years old, single. I've been working at a mid-sized local architectural firm for over 15 years. I've been employed there for 15 years, and I just turned 30 not too long ago. After all, I started working while attending night high school right after graduating from middle school. Everyone was enjoying their high school life, while I was making coffee and doing chores. We put you through compulsory education. Work after you graduate, my dad commanded. My mom was no different. You don't need to go to high school, you could just work in the nightlife industry. You can earn more when you're young. When I, being serious, said that minors can't work in the nightlife industry, she said, "You can fudge that easily enough, can't you? Just work and bring money home." That was the household I grew up in. I promised to contribute money to the household every month and proceeded to attend night high school. The owner of the architectural firm nearby, who had known me since I was a child, sympathized with me and hired me despite being unable to work full-time. My salary was about $900 per month, of which $800 was taken by my parents. They must have thought it was their natural right as parents. Recently, there are terms like toxic parents and parental lottery, but indeed, my parents were those toxic parents. And I, who had drawn a losing ticket in the parental lottery. But at the time, when such terms didn't exist, I grew up being told their harsh words and didn't think of them as harsh. Just naturally hearing them continue. I didn't want a child, but I gave birth to you. I don't like kids, but I raised you. It's natural for a child to obey their parents. If I talked back even a little, I would be hit, so I never thought of defying my parents. The only defiance I had in my childhood was not following my parents' orders to work and contribute to the household after graduating from middle school, and instead going to night high school. I worked at the architectural firm during the day and went to school at night. It was hard, but it was more comfortable for me, who didn't want to be at home. Both my parents worked. My dad was a day laborer in demolition. My mom was a janitor at a casino. My dad, with unstable income, often disliked physical labor and slacked off, and when he did get paid, it went to gambling and alcohol, hardly contributing money to the household. My mom would pour almost all her earnings into gambling at the casino, where she worked after finishing her job, occasionally winning and spending lavishly to show off. She hardly did any housework, and our meals were either snack bread or ready-made food. For me, school lunches were a treat. By upper elementary school, I had realized that my family wasn't normal. It was a major stress to keep pretending to have a normal family, so my classmates wouldn't find out. In middle school, the girl who sat behind me, Jenny, and I became good friends. She liked reading comic books and often lent them to me. I hardly got any allowance, so I was happy because I couldn't buy comic books myself. "Come over to my place next time. You can borrow any comic you like," she said, and for the first time, I went to a friend's house to play. Jenny's house was a still new single-family home. They had a cute small dog, and her kind mom baked homemade cake and served it with juice. It was so different from my own home that I blurted out, "Your house is like something out of a TV drama." Surprised, Jenny said, "Really? My mom has never baked a cake for me." Seeing how sad I looked, Jenny didn't ask any further. When she found out I wasn't taking the high school entrance exams, she said, "Why not? You're good at studying." I was hoping to go to the same high school as you and work hard. That was the first time I talked about my family situation to Jenny. She cried after hearing my story, and since then, she has always been my best friend. If it weren't for Jenny, my life might have been much darker and without salvation. Knight High School had people from various backgrounds and ages, each with their personal circumstances, and it was a great learning experience. After graduating, I was able to work full-time at the architectural firm, and my salary increased. I wanted to move out quickly, but with a take-home salary of about $1,800, of which I had to contribute $800 to my home, I couldn't afford to rent an apartment. However, when I talked to my parents about it on a whim, they said easily, "If you want to leave, then go ahead." I noticed it around the time I was in middle school. My parents were alike and occasionally had flashy arguments, but their marital relationship was good. They often had marital relations, and that was also why I wanted to move out quickly. My interests aligned with my parents, and I started living alone. I rented a studio apartment near my company, and it felt like I could finally breathe freely. I bought the necessary items from a dollar store, minimum cooking utensils. And cooking my favorite meals for myself and eating alone was truly freeing and enjoyable. After I started living alone, I could finally invite Jenny to my house. She had become a college student and still seemed to like comics, saying, "It seems like only you, Tessa, are becoming an adult so quickly." As a working person living alone, she looked a bit lonely and gave me a cute mug as a gift. The president of the architectural firm often took a liking to me, and occasionally invited me over for meals. His bright and kind wife was a good cook, and their slightly naughty middle school son. After visiting Jenny's house, touching a normal and happy family, I still felt envious. However, at some point, I stopped seeing the middle school boy. He went to college and said he wanted to live alone. He graduated from college and got a job, but he quit after a year and went abroad. He occasionally comes back to America, but now I don't know where he is or what he's doing. The president said with a bit of loneliness. I thought even a seemingly happy normal family has its issues. Compared to the days I lived with my parents, it was peaceful and calm. But the connection wasn't severed. There was a monthly ritual. My mom, who had lost big at the casino, would come and say, "Tessa, can you lend me some money? I've dipped into the living expenses," and take hundreds of dollars from me. "Can't you lend it to me?" she would say. But she never returned it even once. She probably never intended to. For sure, my life improved a ton after I moved out compared to what it was like before. After I started working full-time at the architectural firm, I learned to handle phone calls and accounting, and before I was 20, I became a veteran with 5 years of service. The president and the employees, as well as the craftsmen working on the sites, were all older than me, and I was quite adored. At 25, a salesperson from a business partner asked me out for a meal, proposed a relationship, and we started dating. He was a serious and kind person, seriously considering marriage with me. Then, one day, about a year after we started dating, I invited him to my apartment to cook a meal for him. And while I was preparing the meal, someone suddenly came. The usual, once-a-month mom's raid. Always the same business. Just demanding money from me. But there was something different this time. Both my parents came, and both were quite drunk. When I opened the door, they barged into the room and stared at my boyfriend. "Tessa? You finally got a man? Huh. Looks like a decent man. What? You're hitting on my daughter. You better take responsibility," they said and got entangled. The two of them said vulgar things and laughed loudly. And even though I begged them to stop, it only escalated. Of course, they demanded money as usual. "Well, that gentleman over there could pay too?" "Yeah. That's right. It's cheeky to try to get with my daughter for free. Pay up." Sorry. I just remembered I have something to do, he said and ran out of the room. He ran away. Your man. Pathetic. Scared off by this? Good thing his true colors showed. My parents laughed loudly. They clamored for alcohol. And when I tried to give them money to send them home. Looks like you're living quite well. Work has been scarce this month because of the rain. Give me more money. While you're flirting with men, your parents are suffering, my dad said and started opening drawers. Stop it. I don't have that much money at home, I said, but my dad wouldn't back down. What? Then go withdraw some from the bank. And buy some beer while you're out. I reluctantly went to the bank and withdrew $1,000, which I handed to my dad. I didn't buy any beer because I couldn't stand the thought of them starting to drink at home. Damn. No beer? Well, all right. Hey, let's buy some liquor on the way back. Tessa, make sure you use contraception properly. Don't end up with a shotgun marriage like me. Despite her words, I thought he probably wouldn't continue dating me. It was painfully clear that my parents didn't wish for my happiness at all. After my parents left noisily, I cried alone in my room. I liked him, but now that he knew the worst about my parents, our relationship was probably over. With parents like mine, I doubted I could ever have a happy marriage. Even if he accepted me, his parents would likely not approve of associating with such a family. Why was I born to such parents? I didn't need to be wealthy. I just wished I was born to truly ordinary parents. It felt miserable to cry out of self-pity. But I couldn't stop the tears. I'm really sorry, but I need to take some time to figure out our situation. The next day, I received an email with those words from him. I had anticipated this. And although I was prepared, it still hurt deeply. You seem down, Tessa. What's wrong? During lunch, as I ate my sandwich at my desk, the president, who had known me since I was 15 and was somewhat aware of my family situation, approached me. It had been a decade since our association began. He used to call me Tessa when I started working at 15. But at some point, it had changed to Tess. I invited my boyfriend over yesterday to treat him to a homemade meal. But my parents came over drunk at the worst time, and I got dumped. I tried to say it cheerfully. What? That's rough. No, it's inevitable. Anyone would be put off by seeing them. Your parents are a problem, but that boyfriend too. Doesn't he have the spirit to protect the woman he loves? To snatch her away from such parents? Pathetic. The president was angry on my behalf. I had thought I could never marry or be happy with such parents around, but sensing my feelings, he said. Tess, I've been watching you for 10 years. You're capable, serious, bright despite your struggles, a really good girl. A child shouldn't be judged by their parents. It might be presumptuous, but I think of you like my own daughter. I was so touched by his words, I struggled to hold back tears. Thank you. I'll keep working hard. My response was somewhat off the mark. I really wished he was my dad. After that, I completely avoided romance, and before I knew it, I was 30. I thought I would live alone forever. More precisely, live while being milked for money by those parents. Forever? The thought darkened my mood. Then one day, the president introduced a new employee. Matt Harrison. He's 28 but a newbie and he's my son. The office murmured slightly. Unlike the president, who was short and somewhat chubby, this man was tall and slender. The mischievous middle school boy I had once met had grown up completely. However, his large double-lidded eyes remained the same as before, resembling the president. He graduated from university and got a job at a major construction company, but quit after a year and has been aimlessly traveling the world ever since. Sorry. I'm the good-for-nothing son. Please take care of me. The president's son said this, scratching his head and bowing slightly. I thought traveling around the world was incredible. I had never been abroad. The president called him good for nothing, but his son, who graduated from the architectural department, seemed very competent at his job. I don't know much about design, but I heard veteran designers praising his drawings in surprise. Lunch that day turned into a sort of symposium around him. People who usually went out to eat ordered delivery or bought food from the stores, asking him questions while eating. Mainly the veteran female office staff. They were much more senior than me and unreserved, good or bad. I sat at my desk a little away, eating my brought lunch and watching the scene. When asked where he had traveled for 5 years, he replied, let's see. Ancient architecture in Egypt, Greece, and Italy. Religious architecture in India and Turkey. Modern architecture in France and Germany. Futuristic contemporary architecture in the United Arab Emirates and Singapore. I explored various places. I see. I wondered if this journey had been a learning experience in preparation for eventually taking over the family business. Language? Yeah, language is all about guts and acting. If you want to communicate, you can make it work. A foreign girlfriend? It was a budget trip. I dated someone briefly, but she dumped me because I was too broke. When someone remarked, "Even though you're the president's son?" he responded with a laugh, "I'm incognito." Being thought of as a wealthy American doesn't bring any benefits. I want to be with someone who likes me for who I am. And that's probably why I wasn't very popular. Listening to him, I felt a pleasant feeling. I wanted to hear more of his stories. Of course, I couldn't muster the courage to speak to him myself. By the third day, the president's son was being called Maddie by the veteran female staff. It was confusing because he shared his last name with the president. But I also started calling him by his name, keeping the friendly workplace atmosphere. I couldn't quite bring myself to call him Maddie, so I began calling him Matt. As the gatherings around Matt died down and everyone returned to their usual lunch breaks, I was still eating my brought lunch at my desk when he approached me. "You pretty much always eat the lunch you prepared, right? You're Tessa, aren't you? I've been to your house a few times for meals, haven't I?" I was thrilled that he remembered me. "Ah, yes. I'm trying to save money," I replied, stopping my fork. "Do you make it yourself, or does your mom make it for you?" My mom had never made me a lunchbox. I make it myself. Oh, I see. Homemade lunchboxes are the best. I've traveled everywhere, but I can't recall seeing a lunchbox that looks this good. It's almost like it's crafted as art. You're praising too much. Unable to come up with a witty response, I sounded blunt. When I was traveling, I realized how convenient it is to have food that's easy to carry and still tastes good when cold. There were times I desperately wanted a chicken salad sandwich. As he said this, he was indeed munching on a chicken salad sandwich he bought at the store. It feels like it's made with real consideration for the person eating it. It looked delicious. What about when you make and eat it yourself? Ah, right. Self-caring, maybe? Is that a bit of a stretch? He said this with a bright smile. His radiant smile seemed exceptionally lovely. I wanted him to taste a lunch box made with my feelings. It might be a bit presumptuous, but I asked, "Would you like me to bring a lunchbox for you?" "Really?" "Yes, please. I'll pay for it. It's not much difference making for one or two." No, I can't let you do that. How about this, once a week? I'll treat you to a fancy dinner. How does that sound? Good or bad, wasn't that basically a date? Realizing this made my heart race, and I could feel my cheeks turning red. I also wanted to visit various places since I came back to America. But there are some places that are hard to go to alone, so this is perfect. I was a bit disappointed by that, but I was more than happy. That day, after work, I stopped by the supermarket to buy ingredients for the lunchbox. Tuna sandwiches, boiled egg, some fruits and pickles. Wow! This is the best. Matt scarfed down what was in his lunchbox. Ever since, I've been making our lunches every day. And we've been sharing meals during our lunch hour. On Friday nights, we went out to eat at places I had never been to, like Italian, French, Chinese, Thai, and Vietnamese restaurants. I learned a lot of new things from Matt's stories, and he made me laugh a lot. One time, when I was at a market in a certain country, I became friends with a girl who was selling stuff. She was bright, good at business, and had a cute smile. I'm about to hear a love story from Matt. Then one day, she told me, I am getting married in 3 days. So today is my last day at the shop. What? The man she was marrying was a wealthy guy over 40. And she was just 15. I didn't know how to react. It's not that uncommon. They start working before they even turn 10. And get married very young, sometimes as the third wife. I felt embarrassed about how I used to cry thinking I was unfortunate. As I fell silent, Matt said, "So, feeling embarrassed about wandering around at 28. I decided to come back to America and get a proper job. I feel embarrassed about myself too." Huh? My parents are a bit problematic. I sometimes think I'm unfortunate. It was the first time I had spoken to someone other than my best friend Jenny about this. "Oh, sorry, I've heard a bit from my dad. He says that you have been through a lot. Yet she's cheerful and diligent, and after 15 years, he thinks of her like a daughter. I feel very fortunate just to have met the president. I've always wished he could really be my dad." I said this with a smile, holding back tears. "Then, why don't you really start calling my dad Dad?" "What? That sounded weird. I mean, it's weird timing to say this, but will you marry me?" Matt then pulled a ring out of his pocket. "This isn't expensive, but I found a beautiful stone at a gem market in Thailand. And had it set into a ring when I returned to America. It was a beautiful sapphire ring." "Marry me?" "Yes. I want to eat the meals you make forever." "Is that okay?" "That's not a problem, but my parents." I remembered being dumped by someone I previously dated after they saw my parents. Wouldn't Matt want to break up with me too if he met them? I couldn't just say yes, happily. "I think you'd be really put off if you met my parents. It might become a nuisance. And if that happens, I couldn't recover if it happened again. It doesn't matter what your parents are like. What's important is your feelings, Tessa. I will protect you. Let's be happy together." Could I really marry the person I love? I never thought such a day would come for me. No matter what, I wanted to trust him and be happy together. That resolve was tested the very next day. My mom came to beg for money again. It was as if she had a sensor to detect my happiness. I couldn't be happy without fighting back. I decided to stand up to her. "Mom, I'm getting married. I'm moving out and I won't be giving you and Dad money anymore." I had decided to tell them off if they came to take money again. I was prepared to cut ties. In fact, I would be happy if the ties were severed. "What? What are you talking about? When are you getting married? Is it that man I saw here before? Where do you plan to move?" My mom bombarded me with questions, bringing back memories I didn't want to recall. "I won't be taking care of you and Dad anymore. Don't come here again." When I said this, my mom retorted, "Humph. What an attitude towards your parents. Don't think things will go your way," and stormed off. It was the first time I managed to fend her off without losing any money. I wished I had taken a firm stance sooner. Matt and his parents understood my wish not to invite my own parents to the wedding. Parents who only mooch off their daughter instead of celebrating her wedding. are just toxic parents. If you want to be happy, you have to distance yourself. With that, instead of having a wedding ceremony and reception, we decided to rent out a Chinese restaurant frequented by the president and hold a wedding party with close family, friends, and colleagues. Not long after the party started, one of the veteran female employees confided in me that someone claiming to be my relative had called the company 2 days ago, asking for the party venue to send a congratulatory telegram. I felt my face go pale. This wasn't just a bad feeling. Those people would do anything to satisfy their desires. Just then, the restaurant door was violently opened, and my parents barged in. "Hey, Tessa. You married a rich husband, and yet you're having a party here? How stingy. They came to say we should support them. You know that, right? I thought it was all over. I wanted to disappear from that place." Then, just married Matt said with a smile, "Let's do as your parents wish." What? As I looked at him in surprise, Matt whispered, "Leave it to me. We've already prepared a house for your parents. We'll pick them up tomorrow, so could you please leave for today?" I hadn't heard anything about this. I see. You do understand after all. I thought you were an unfilial daughter. But you've been talking properly. Suddenly in a good mood, my dad quietly took my mom's hand and they left. Then, the president, who had become my dad-in-law, took the microphone and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the disturbance. The bride, Tessa, has been working at our company for over 15 years. She attended a part-time high school while working and has always taken care of her parents, who you saw earlier. The frog's children are frogs. A black hen lays a white egg. There are various forms of parent-child relationships. But children cannot choose their parents. However, Tessa chose my son. And my wife and I have become her parents." Taking the microphone from the president, my husband then began to speak. "I vowed to make her happy. So, even though they are her parents, I thought it would be good to teach them a lesson. Everyone here today, please pray for our happiness." After a brief murmur in the venue, "Tessa, congratulations on your marriage. Hang in there. We're supporting you." Jenny, now a mom of 2, clapped her hands. And gradually, applause spread and everyone began to offer words of congratulations and encouragement. The next day, my husband and I drove to my parents' house in a luxury foreign car. A 25-year-old employee named Brian was also with us. We stopped in front of an old apartment. The shiny luxury car felt out of place. But my parents came out hopping with joy, as expected of a rich man. They said and climbed into the back seat with great enthusiasm. "Well, this is a rental car." Then, Brian also got into the back seat. "Huh? Wait, who is this guy?" Think of him as something like a secretary and bodyguard, my husband said cheerfully. Incidentally, our company does not have secretaries or bodyguards. Brian is an employee of our company. A quiet young man with a heavyweight build who enjoys boxing. Wow, that's impressive. I wasn't quite sure what was impressive. But my dad seemed intimidated by the very robust Brian. My husband was driving. And I was in the passenger seat. The car left the center of the state and headed towards the mountains. "Hey, isn't this a bit far?" "Yes, well. But it's a scenic spot in a spa area," my husband explained. "A house in a spa area, that's amazing." As expected of a rich man, no one had said anything about a house being prepared. The car entered a large, nearly empty site in the mountains and stopped. "Huh? What? There's nothing here. We're going to build it now." "What? Ah, look. The people who will take care of you are coming." Then, 3 robust men approached us. "What's this about? Hey. What's going on?" My dad, sensing something was off, confronted my husband. Then Brian silently grabbed my dad by the shoulder and pulled him aside. My dad looked pitiful, intimidated by Brian's size and strength. We're going to build a large spa facility here. Our company is participating in that project. And your residents will be in that container house over there. What? You will be provided with food, clothing, and shelter, and you'll be paid a salary. Well, you will have to repay the money you took from your wife from that salary. Wait. Are you tricking us? No, that sounds bad. He who does not work shall not eat, right? At that moment, 3 men in work clothes with our company's name approached my parents. And the most intimidating-looking one spoke. The president told us about you. We're looking forward to straightening you out. Enjoy. My dad quieted down instantly. Hey. Don't mess around. Tessa. What do you think you're doing to your parents? My mom was way more intense than my dad and often took it out on me. But my husband jumped in and said, how about you act like parents if you are parents? I can't forgive what you two have done to Tessa. I will make her happy. This place is inaccessible except by car, and it's difficult to walk to town from here. Plus, these men will be watching you. It's useless to try to escape. Think of it as staying here until you've repaid all the money you took from your wife. My parents were intimidated by the pressure from my husband. And the 3 tough men, plus Brian. Hey. This is too much. Help me, Tessa. My mom was all teary-eyed trying to get me to listen, but I didn't pay her any mind. The 3 robust employees receive a regular salary plus a surveillance allowance. And if they can keep my parents working properly until the completion of the spa facility. The president promised them a special bonus. Brian was promised a treat at a barbecue place afterward. My unhealthy parents might also get healthier with a regulated lifestyle. Goodbye. Mom and Dad. I'm grateful to you for giving birth to me. Thanks to that, I met my husband. I told them, prepared never to see them again. If they earnestly work and reform, I might reconsider. I hope that day comes. Surrounded by the men. My parents trudged towards the container house. Are you okay? My husband looked at me worriedly. I nodded silently. Don't worry. They're not being forced to labor, and despite how they look, they're all kind-hearted people. I'll come by to check on them occasionally. Thank you for everything. I can't thank you and the president enough. Children shouldn't suffer for their parents. Tessa should live her life as she wishes. And has every right to be happy. I'll do everything I can to support that. With that, my husband embraced me. Later, every month, $1,000 started being transferred to my bank account from my parents. Apparently deducted from their salaries. When we go out on holidays, someone always accompanies them, so they can't escape or indulge in gambling. Recently, for the first time in their lives, they're happy looking at their bank book. Because they've been able to save money. Also, they can't drink heavily. So they've gotten healthier, my husband told me. Although I was not fortunate with my biological parents. Now I have people I can lovingly call Dad and Mom. And I have a husband who I love more than anyone else. Let's go on a family trip once the spa facility is completed. My husband suggested one day. It will be a little over a year until the facility is completed. If Tessa agrees, once the spa is completed, I think I'll invite your parents too. As long as they've been working properly. That sounds good. If they've worked properly until it's completed. I might even let them see their grandchild. Yes, I'm currently 4 months pregnant. By the time the spa facility is completed, the baby will have been born. Whether they get to be called Grandma and Grandpa by their grandchild will depend on my parents. The money growing in my bank account each month will be used for the baby.